Let's get more reaction to this quarter here for Salesforce. Joining us now is Jefferies tech sector specialist, Jared Weisfeld. Jared, great to have you with us. It looks like, at least at first blush, that it looks like a pretty good quarter, and you were looking for margins. There's upside there. So what did you make of this whole thing?
Yeah, absolutely, Melissa. And I think Dan hit all the right points. I mean, heading into the print, we were looking for better top-line momentum as well as better operating margin performance, and that's exactly what we got. $6.34 billion of revenue, way ahead of the street at $6.22 billion. Arguably the most important metric is something called CRPO, which stands for Current Remaining Performance Obligations. That's a good real-time indicator of the health of the business. That was up 23% of the year-on-year, ahead of guidance at 20% year-on-year, and they had a tough comp from the year-ago quarter as well, so that was quite strong. And I think the absolute star of the show here was operating margins at 20.4%, which is about 200 basis points ahead of the street. And in line with what Dan was just talking about, you look at year-to-date, the stock's up 17%, but on a relative basis, you look at that against the broader software ETF, the IGV, it's actually sitting on one-year lows. And that's because you've had concerns on Slack integration and operating margin expansion, or lack thereof, really pressuring the stock. So the fact that you were able to get the operating margin expansion, and Amy, the new CFO, came in and delivered another 50 basis points of operating margin expansion for the full year raise as well for the next fiscal year, the stock certainly screens cheap relative to its peers, about a 40% discount relative to large cap peers.
Hey, Jared, it's Tim, and part of that is that rocket ship of a number they reported a year ago that set the performance bar very high. But you talked also about the Slack integration and where ultimately this leaves CRM versus taking on Microsoft. Can you talk about that? Because again, we led the show talking about not only software but cyber and where some of the bigger guys are better positioned to spend here. Talk about Salesforce versus Microsoft.
It's such an important point, Tim. When you think about where Benioff is driving the future of this company, and you think about just collaboration as a whole, right? I mean, work from home is not going anywhere anytime soon. It really is work from anywhere. You've seen multiple companies in Silicon Valley endorse employees working from their home office on a permanent basis go forward. And I think the ability to have collaboration as part of Benioff's toolkit is so critical. And when you mention Microsoft as a competitor, I think we've talked about this before. Satya Nadella, part of his compensation package is actually derived based on Microsoft Teams users. So that is where Microsoft is driving this business. That is where Benioff is driving this business. And now that he's got this underneath the umbrella, combined with Tableau, combined with MuleSoft, combined with all of the original Salesforce engines, it really gives him the go-to-market that's able to go ahead and take on Microsoft. And I think when all said and done, it's going to turn out to be a pretty smart acquisition. You think about the integration capabilities that he's able to deliver, especially in the context of work from anywhere, and those trends don't seem to be abating.
This is the first quarter inclusive of Slack, Jared, and you went through the laundry list of the notable acquisitions Salesforce has made in its recent history, and I'm wondering how much more leverage there is to be had from these acquisitions that have not been extracted yet.
So I'd say, you've seen tremendous momentum in their organization. When you start looking T+1, T+2, T+3 quarters after you plug the entire Salesforce in and you reframe the Salesforce on the cross and upselling motions across the board. And Slack is really going to go ahead and provide that opportunity when you think about the ability for them to penetrate that TAM, that total addressable market. So, I think they've made tremendous strides with MuleSoft, tremendous strides with Tableau. Those are probably in the later innings with respect to those integrations for sure. And I think all hands on deck are now with respect to Slack and how CRM can take on Microsoft on the day-to-day when you think about the ability to integrate that collaboration tool as part of the Salesforce suite. So I still think plenty of runway to go with respect to Slack. We're still very much early days.
Jared, great to see you. Thank you. Jared Weisfeld of Jefferies. Guy, your top pick in software.
Well, I mean, I know you're not an Oracle fan there, Melms, but I still think very quietly they're sort of catching up to the rest of the world, and it's manifesting itself in the stock price. But in terms of Salesforce, quickly, kudos to Dan, number one. I'll say again, I think the stock trades up to 285, which was the high this time last year, and I think you take profits there. You get a close above 290, we'll have another conversation. You can wrap your arms around this valuation given the growth, and I think the stock continues to trend higher.
By the way, I'm agnostic when it comes to any individual shares
What is,
or sectors
does that
for
mean
that
you
matter.
don't care
Anything
one way
in the
or another? Can I ask you? Can I ask you a quick question, by the way, because that's
Go
what we do
ahead.
on this show.
Why not?
Isn't a unicorn? Isn't the scarcity factor of a unicorn what makes it special? So therefore, a herd of unicorns stops being special. Isn't that, or does my mind not work correctly? I'm just throwing it out there to the fast money audience.
Maybe Jim will point that out to Mark Benioff tonight when he speaks to him on Mad Money at the top of the hour. But Jeff, quickly to bring it back to actual stocks and how people feel about them, your top pick in software.
Well, look, I'm going to go with CRM here. It's a name that I've been following for some time, and I just think in this brave new world that we're in, what they do becomes increasingly useful. And I know we keep talking about the Slack acquisition, but it is going to be incredibly important. And it's not just about communicating within a company, but it's about communicating between companies and disrupting email, and that can be very, very powerful. And I think I've seen estimates right now that they're only servicing 20% of the total worldwide market, estimates of $175 billion by 2025. That is a big market, so they still have room to grow, even if you consider the current valuation a little bit stretched.